Welcome to Crime Most French, a weekly podcast taking you through intriguing cases carried out on French soil. Researched and narrated by Cedric and rudely interrupted by me, Melanie. We're the true crime podcast All the Lions. Crack open le vin and let the mayhem commence.
This week, on the 4th of August 1920, the police in Nancy, in the east of France, discovers a box in the train station that contains a body. It was shipped from Paris. Nobody was waiting for it. And it contains the body of Georges Bassarabo. He was killed with a gunshot to the head. The box becomes known in the press as the Boody Box.
This is obviously predating the famous 7 Brad Pitt meme. What's in the box?
It would, yes, by quite a lot.
Mm.
Ismail Jacob Weissman, a.k.a. Georges Bassarabo, was born in Romania. He was a deal broker. He was facilitating any commercial operation.
Mm-hmm.
He, for example, not long before he died, organized the purchase of a field in Mexico for an oil company because there was oil around there.
Okay.
It is in Mexico in 1915 that he gets married to Louise Grues, and they lived in Paris together near the La Bruyère Square. On Saturday morning, 31st of July, George's staff at his office don't see him come in as they were expecting. He had set up some important appointments the previous day.
Mm.
Later that day, his wife, Louise, turns up with a letter that says that George had to go to Evian, which is at the Swiss border.
Yeah.
In that letter, George asks his wife to send him a few things to Nancy, which is not very far, but not exactly next door.
No.
According to the employees at the time, Louise was totally hyper when she was in the office, and they were surprised. But George doesn't appear on Sunday. He doesn't appear on Monday.
Okay.
He disappeared.
Bummer. I'll tell you what's more of a bummer, the thought of having to work all day on a Saturday.
Yeah, but that was 1920. It was before the 48 hours a week and before the paid holidays, because that came in 36 in France.
Yeah, it's just...
So at the time you worked 80 hours a week if needed, 6 days a week.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
You got time off to go to church and that was it. And be thankful for it.
That's pretty much it, yeah.
Yeah.
It is George's driver, Edouard Croix, who, worried, goes to the police on Monday morning. When he talks to the police, he mentions fights between George and Louise, and he also mentions that George was sometimes afraid of going home. The police visits the flat where they used to live.
Okay.
They don't find anybody, and they don't find any reason really to be worried. There's no blood everywhere. It looks normal. It looks a bit disorganized.
Yeah.
Which they were surprised of because they were supposed to be organized people and there was stuff all over the flat. But apart from that, they didn't worry, so they just left.
Are they the type of family to have people who come in and clean and...
They probably would have had, yeah, I would assume at the time, yeah.
Because were they reasonably well off?
Yeah, they were reasonably well off, yeah. Mm. On Tuesday, the driver, again, goes back to the police station, again, and he relates how Louise sent a large box via the train station. The cop in charge decides that it's all a bit strange.
Oh, yeah.
And he wants to question Louise and her daughter.
Mm. It does seem very strange that it's an employee that's more concerned about his welfare than his wife.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's why he wants to talk to them.
Oh,
but they're not there.
The alarm bells are deafening.
Yeah. He learns that at that time they had left and they were in their country house in Montmorency, which they had bought not long ago.
Oh, they definitely had staff then if they had 2 houses.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So, and also Montmorency is a posh area.
Mm.
So he goes there as quick as he can.
Okay.
And he finds Louise and her daughter packing for a long trip.
Yeah.
Again.
Oh, just a one-way trip, is it? Not intending to come back trip.
Yeah. Louise tells the following story to the cop. She was supposed to go on a trip with her husband.
Yes.
And she was supposed to take that big large box with her to the train station and meet him there.
Of course, I'm always travelling with big, huge, giant boxes that can fit bodies in.
Yeah. But he never turned up.
Mm.
So instead, she received a letter asking her to send the box via the train to Nancy.
Yeah, sure.
She says she doesn't know anything else.
No.
The cop goes to the train station in Paris and he finds the porter that helped her move the box. And he says that she gave him a 40 francs tip. Today it would be about 400 euros.
I was about to say, did he go out and buy a house, did he? I mean, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money for a tip, yeah. And she also left without her receipt for the ticket and without taking the change.
Yeah, that doesn't smell at all. In fact, that probably smells just like the box smelled.
Yeah, she obviously was in a hurry to leave. He also mentions that whatever was in the box was moving around and felt soft. The concierge of the building where the couple lived is also interviewed by the cops. He mentions that, yes, there was a box, and he helped Louise and her daughter moving the box downstairs and put it in a taxi. And he thought that it was a strange-looking box.
Yeah, that's quite crazy to think how many people actually helped them move it.
Yeah, and he says it wasn't full, but it was very heavy, and Louise had explained it to him as it contains books, which didn't convince him.
So this box is just basically standing in for a giant cooler, which seems to be one of the things that people put bodies in. I've seen in the past these giant coolers that you use for going.
Oh yes,
yeah,
yes,
with duct tape round it. You may as well just
and
actually
a padlock.
Yeah, you may as well just put dead body be here.
Yeah. So the chief of police, receiving that report, decides that something is fishy and it needs to be investigated.
Clearly.
He arrests Louise and her daughter straight away and contacts the police in Nancy to ask them to go and look for a box. Because at that point it hadn't been found. Well, it hadn't been reported.
Okay.
It was probably found because it was unloaded from the train, but nobody requested it and it was just put in a corner probably and forgotten.
Yeah. It's been found in the sense of it was in the lost and found, probably. Yeah.
Probably. So they have no difficulty finding that box, and that's on the 4th of August. And when they open it, they find first a tent sheet, so waterproof tent.
Tarp,
Yeah. And when they remove it, they find underneath the body, already fairly decomposed,
Yuck.
of someone who had been shot in the head.
And
it's been 6 days at that point.
6 days in August.
In August, yeah. Yeah, and east of France is also quite hot.
Yeah.
The legs were folded backwards and attached to the rib cage, and the feet were attached to the throat with rope.
Wow, that man must have taken quite a bit of force.
Unless you break the legs, break the hips and everything, I can't see how you can bend somebody backwards like that.
No.
And also, why would you do it? It would be much easier to bend forward.
Yeah. But put it in the fetal position.
Yeah, or that. But even folding the legs forward would be so much easier than backwards. I don't know why they decided to fold the body backwards.
I mean, I remember watching one of the things they tested on Mythbusters and how easy it was to move a cadaver.
And it wasn't.
Not at all.
Dead weight is hard to move.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, that's definitely more than a one-person job, in my mind anyway.
Yeah. After the body is found and is identified as George's body, the police very quickly is convinced that it's Louise and probably her daughter that did it.
Oh, yeah.
After all, as Provenza says, it's always the wife, it's always the wife, it's always the wife.
Yeah, if it's not the wife, it's the husband, yeah.
Yeah. They think that George was killed during the night of the 30th to the 31st, so Friday to Saturday, in the flat where they used to live. But what baffles the police is not who did it, is why. Because they had a fair amount of money. They were supposed to get more very soon.
Yeah. Well, if they're buying second houses.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The wife has never really looked like she would kill someone. She was writing books and stuff. Was it a crime of passion? Was it a crime for money? They have no idea. They don't understand why it happened. Also, strangely, the plot is very close to the plot of one of Louise's books.
Oh dear.
Called Du Bang à l'Eden.
How to put your husband in a box.
From the prison to heaven or something, or to Eden.
But not how to put your husband in a box, no.
But it was part of the plot.
Yeah.
And they also don't know if the daughter was involved because she lived with them. So was she involved in it? Did she do something? So they just don't know why things happened.
Yeah, but I mean, as I've said, and I think most rational people would say, there's no way a woman is going to manage to put dead weight in
On
a
her own,
box
no.
and bend the legs back. Oh, I mean, it's just so gruesome thinking about it.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
So who was Louise Grues? Louise was born in Lyon in 1868.
So she's from the East.
She's from the East. She's not far from the Swiss border. She was brought up in a convent in Lyon.
Okay.
And for those who know France, she's l'Abbé Pierre's aunt. Her brother, Antoine, is his father.
Okay.
Louise was a feminist writer. She wrote poems, novels, which were usually kind of autobiographical, plays, essays, pamphlets, this sort of things.
So she's semi-intellectual type.
No, she's fairly intellectual, yeah. She even created a newspaper called L'Entente to support the feminist cause.
Okay.
Her nom de plume is Era Myrtel or Eva Myrtel. I've found both in newspapers. She's not very well known at the time because she's writing very niche stuff and she's totally forgotten today. But she was fairly prolific. She wrote quite a lot. And she calls herself a theoretical rebel.
Theoretical rebel.
A bit pretentious.
Please, largest eye roll.
She's issued from a group of families nicknamed the Barcelonette. They all come from a single valley called Lubay. It's a group of families who immigrated to Mexico. Some, like the Grues, and especially Louise's brother, were pretty successful and became rich in Mexico.
Oh, I see. And presumably is that why they got married in Mexico?
Yes, at the time she was living in Mexico with her family. She had a shop, a novelty shop there that was day-to-day run by one of her associates.
Novelty shop? She was selling whoopee cushions or something?
I don't know exactly what it is. It's described like that in the press, in the press articles. They don't give any details. They call it a novelty shop, so I don't know exactly what it is. Could be gadgets. I don't know.
Leftorium. Maybe she's a big lefty.
Yeah. She gets married to her first husband in Mexico. He was called Paul Jacques, and that was in 1897. Unfortunately, Paul commits suicide in 1913. Gunshot to the head, again, with a revolver.
Sorry, so two husbands with bullets in their head.
Two husbands, 2 holes in the head, yeah.
Yeah.
Officially, he committed suicide because he despaired about his financial losses due to the Mexican Revolution.
All right. Okay.
So he probably made a lot of money in Mexico and lost it because of the revolution. The rumor at the time says it was due to his wife and what she was doing. There was no details, but it was implied that there was lovers in the story. The first husband's suicide, combined with the second husband's box and hole in the head, kind of worries the police. They're thinking Black Widow.
Oh, yeah. Total Black Widow.
So they decide to start an inquiry. The judge in charge of the inquiry is Gabriel Buena. And if you remember episode 4, the Landru affair, he was also instructing that affair at the same time.
So superstar judge then?
Totally, at the time, yes. During questioning, Louise and her daughter changed the version they tell a number of times. At first, Louise says that she wanted to get some of her husband's money because he had been spending the money she inherited from her first husband, and she considered that money to be her daughter's.
Okay.
For that, she demanded a share of the latest deal he did in Mexico, which was for about 600,000 francs, which would be 6 million today, euros. And that was his share of the deal.
Well, that must have been a huge deal. Must have been a lot of oil.
Oil, yeah. And apparently, according to her, he would have refused and attacked her, so she had to defend themselves, and she killed him. She tells that story. George came home on Friday night at midnight. Once in their bedroom, she complained about his behavior because he, according to her, had mistresses.
Okay.
He looked at her with disdain and was totally uninterested in what she was saying, and I got her pretty pissed. So she took the revolver that was on the night table, because apparently in that house you had loaded revolvers on night tables.
Yeah.
In Paris flats. It's not like there was a high crime in those flats, but anyway.
No.
And shot him in the head, close range.
I'll tell you, if every partner shot their other half because they were only half listening, wow, there'd be a lot of deaths.
Yes. Her daughter, of course, heard the shot. Louise tells her to explain the noise that the bath heater, which I'm guessing was some kind of coal thing, maybe exploded.
Okay.
And the next morning, early, she goes to her daughter's bedroom and she confesses, that's it. I've killed your stepdad. The two women would then have gone to the 6th floor to collect one of the big boxes up there. That must have been the attic, the 6th floor. Paris buildings tend to have 5 floors. Put the body inside under waterproof sheet.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul, the daughter, confirmed that story as well when they're interrogated, and added that she was only helping her mum from a distance as little as she could. She didn't want to touch the body.
Oh, so she was going, you.
Yeah,
and
she was.
And being all girly about it.
Yeah. Then they took the box downstairs with the help of the concierge, which we know has
Yes.
been corroborated by the concierge,
Mm-hmm.
and took it to the train station in a taxi. We know that's true as well.
Yeah.
They then went back home, decided to go to their country house, as you do when you just kill your husband.
Yeah.
On the way, they stopped at a lake, and they went on a boat trip.
Okay.
That's where her mom, that's Paul who says it, threw away the gun in the water.
Nifty.
Yeah. So then they finished the trip to the house, and there they burnt clothes and sheets that they had brought with them that were bloody.
Mm-hmm.
She says that she was kind of expecting something like that at some point because her mom and stepdad were arguing a lot, and he was having mistresses, and apparently he spent 1 million francs of her money. So she was expecting something to happen.
Yeah. That must have been, was that 1 million, the equivalent of 1 million francs today, or was
that
it?
would be the equivalent of 10 million euros today.
I mean, that's some spending.
That's some spending, yeah. Then they decided to pretend that they only confessed under pressure from the judge, and only to save Paul, the daughter.
Okay. So they changed their stories then.
Because Louise didn't want the daughter to go to jail with low-class girls. So then she decides, no, everything I said is not true. Nothing happened. I wasn't involved. I didn't do anything. The box was sent to Nancy by the husband, not by Louise. And it only contained papers that were important for national security. Don't know why that would be, but that's what she decides to say.
She's saying she doesn't know how her husband got in the box, but he got in the box by some other means.
And posted himself, yeah.
Yeah.
And she says that her daughter had seen and heard nothing. That's the second version.
Not very likely.
No. The judge smells something pretty fishy.
Yeah.
And given the death of the first husband, which was apparently suicide, but with a gun as well, he decides to exhume the body.
No, that's not surprising.
Yes.
Good idea.
The body would be 7 years old at that point.
Mm.
They find several letters in his hat that nobody had noticed. Nobody during the ceremony or at the morgue or anywhere had seen those letters in their hat. Obviously, they didn't look for it, and the cops this time were looking for something.
Yeah.
They relate how he wanted to die. It was all, as official story was, that he had lost lots of money and just couldn't face things. The judge doesn't believe that for a second.
Yeah, that seems very convenient.
It seems super convenient, yeah. So he orders expertise, several of them, to try to find out, did he write those letters or not? And they all come back positive. He did write those letters.
So these are the graphologists.
Yes. Apparently, Louise didn't kill her husband number one.
Okay. That's one she doesn't have to go to prison for.
Yeah. So during the inquiry, the newspapers relate the police's findings.
Mm-hmm.
Louise and her daughter are presented as cold-blooded and calm the whole time. Even when the judge was questioning them at the start of the affair, when George had only disappeared at the time, none of them was worried. She sent them round the country saying that her husband could be here or here or here or here, because she didn't know where he was, but it could be in all those places. So they kind of ran around in circles for no reason.
Yeah. And
even when the judge told her that they found a box in Nancy that they were going to open, again, no, she's calm, no problem. She doesn't know what's in the box.
So she's basically looking like a complete sociopath then.
At that point, yes. Now we would call her a psychopath, probably.
Mm.
The newspaper reports that Dr. Paul, that's lots of Pauls, but it's Dr. Paul, no relation.
Dr. Paul as opposed to daughter Paul.
Yes, and as opposed to Paul Jacques, as the dad.
Yes.
Who did the autopsy, didn't find any traces of fight, no different injuries on the body, and he finds a bullet wound on the right temple that came out above the left ear, so through.
So it was sudden and close, and
so he says it's probably close range.
Mm.
George's brother, who's interviewed by newspapers after the results of the autopsy are made public, says that he's not entirely surprised, that Louise was playing the share market and losing loads of money, so she needed to find more money to pay her debts.
Okay.
That led to fights in the marriage, according to him. He said that his brother reported to him that he was nearly strangled once by his wife, and he feared for his life. George also would have told his brother that his wallet was regularly emptied of money, and he didn't know who took the money, but really we're looking at the wife or the daughter. Some witnesses, according to the newspapers, say that they saw the box downstairs near the service entrance 3 days before the murder.
Ooh, premeditation.
Which would mean premeditation. The letter explaining that George was away and Louise needed to send the box to Nancy was found as a draft in 15 different versions in the flat by the cops. And they think that it was Paul who was writing it.
Okay.
And also they found...
Copying Daddy's writing.
Exactly, and they found somebody practicing the signature as well.
And it's silly that they burnt the clothes, but they didn't burn the letter.
Yeah, exactly. The witnesses also say that long before George was murdered, there was a rehearsal taking place, and at the time they had decided to strangle him. And I don't see how witnesses would know that, but it must be the police feeding information to newspapers, but newspapers never say where the information comes from. Again, that would be premeditation if there was a rehearsal.
Oh, totally, yeah.
As far as I know, they never found the gun. So most likely the story about the lake and the boat trip is true, and there's no way they're going to find it. At some point, the police even investigates claims that Louise and Paul were involved in certain cults and strange ceremonies were taking place.
This wasn't the 1980s, ladies.
It was, yeah. I don't know.
Did they play Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah, exactly. There might have been another satanic scare, I guess, in the 20s. It's possible. I don't know. But it's not the same.
It's slightly before Alistair Crowley, isn't it? There was a big, huge sweep through Europe of being obsessed with the occults and devil worship then.
Yeah, maybe it was already on at the time. I don't know.
Could be.
As Louise and her daughter are locked up in jail, the judge tries to wrap up the Landru case. And he says that he's close to finishing the Bassarabo case, but he dies.
He was spreading himself a bit too thin, obviously.
Probably because the Landru one was a toughie one.
I mean, that was a lot of murders as well.
Yes, it was a large number of murders, yeah. So he dies in April 1922, and it turns out when they assigned somebody else to the case, that there's a whole bunch of documents that he had ignored that were fairly important to the case, so they reopened the inquiry.
They're dragging it on and on and on.
And the trial is delayed. The trial eventually starts on the 6th of June 1922, so we're talking...
2 years.
Nearly 2 years, 23 months later.
Yeah, it's a month before, yeah.
So the judge, once again, was involved in the Landru affair. He was the judge of the Landru affair. That's the second connection between the two cases. Louise tries to hire a lawyer, but isn't very successful because it doesn't smell good.
No.
Really, why, as a lawyer, why do you want to take a case on that you know you're going to lose?
Yes.
Because it's obvious she did it.
I wouldn't touch that with a barge pole.
Exactly, but eventually she managed to hire one, and guess what? It's one of Landru's lawyers.
No.
Third connection between the two cases.
Would you automatically want to get somebody who's been kind of like representing him in court because he got his head cut off?
Yeah, well, the thing is she didn't really have the choice at the time because she
not.
just couldn't find a lawyer who would want to take the case. What's the point?
No.
You have a reputation, and if you take cases you're going to lose, why?
Yeah.
You're not working for yourself. So she hires that lawyer. During the trial, the women are banned from the court because they don't want the incidents that happened during the Landru case where there was hysteria and shouting and screaming. Okay. And so no women in the court.
Yeah, because only women get hysterical and shout.
Well, yeah,
men never do that.
Well, that's the origin of the word.
Yes.
Hysteria comes from uterus.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
but still.
Yeah, I know.
Nonsense.
Many witnesses are called. They're called parents, friends, business associates, neighbors, mistresses of the victims. They did have mistresses. Famous writers who collaborated with Louise, etc., etc., etc. So
basically the great and the good of Paris.
Yeah. The trial lasts until the 21st of June. During the testimonies, we learned that George was in fact ruined. He had no money left.
What were they doing buying second houses if they were ruined?
I know. He spent his wife's money.
Okay, so
according to newspapers, she inherited between 800 and 1 million francs at the time. So between
Wow.
1 million and 10 million euros today.
They must have been living at large.
He must have been spending a lot of money as well.
Yeah.
The deal in Mexico also wasn't going to give him the money he said he was going to get. He said it would get 600,000 francs, and it's going to be nothing like that.
Oh, dear.
But the trial is full of incidents. For example, there was one on the 7th of June when Paul, the daughter, is questioned by the judge, and she starts talking and mentions a secret that her mother has, and her mother shouts in the courtroom that she stops talking.
Wow.
So she stops. Another one is on the 21st of June, after the prosecutor has finished his 5-hour speech. Paul, the daughter, again is interrogated by the judge, and she admits at that point that she lied. So you can imagine the courtroom.
Gasping.
Yep. She confesses that she took part, barely. She still pretends that it was from the tip of the fingers, but yeah. She admits that she helped loading the box. She says that her mother locked her in her bedroom when things happened. That would imply premeditation again from Louise.
Yeah.
So that's a number of stories that all point to the fact that she had planned that.
Yeah.
Then she goes back to the secret that she had mentioned previously.
Tell us, what's the big secret?
She says that, here's the secret. When they were in jail, her mom came to see her.
Okay.
Because she was ill. She told her that when I heard the gunshot on that morning, I didn't see what really happened. The mom told Paul that somebody else was there. There was another person in the room.
A third person?
Yeah. And there was also apparently another person at the train station meeting Louise when she went to the box at the train station. That's all she knows. The mum wouldn't tell more because there were witnesses too close by. There were nurses and nuns around. She also admits that the letters that had been sent to the prosecutor saying that George was a spy, a German spy, she wrote them.
Not too sure how that would clear her of killing her husband.
That's Paul talking, but yes. So then Louise, the wife, talks, and she explains the secret. She says that the person that was there was Becker, who was one of George's associates.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, Becker committed suicide in the woods, so can't testify. That's convenient.
How convenient.
Yes. Oh, it's not me, it's the dead guy there.
Yeah. It was him.
Louise also says that the man in the box isn't her husband. She says that she would have recognized her husband, and that guy in the box did not look like her husband. She says he lives in New York, and she has proof of it because an American general sent her a letter saying that he knew him over there, and that is the secret.
So basically, is she saying that she shot someone else then?
I think she's saying that Becker shot someone in the flat that wasn't her husband, and the person in the box is that person who's not her husband, and her husband lives in New York.
Yeah.
That's the new story. So, of course, the room is totally quiet.
Yeah,
because nobody believes
like
that.
going,
that's after closing arguments.
What?
So...
does the court artist have a picture of her lawyer yanking all of his hair out?
Yes. So, of course, nobody knows what to think of that. But the judge decides that it's just rubbish. Just ignore that.
Yes.
Of course, her lawyer, who hadn't given his closing arguments yet, the prosecution had, but he hadn't, just doesn't know what to do at that point. So he throws away his papers and decides to improvise because really, what else can you do with that kind of story coming out? So he decides to not say that she didn't do it because she obviously did.
Yes.
And he decides to explain what she did, saying that sometimes when you fear for your life, you have to kill someone to defend yourself. But the newspapers who were covering the case were saying that he looked totally broken at the time.
Yeah, well, you would be, wouldn't you?
He was probably close to suicide as well. Strangely, the jury acquits Paul.
Yeah, that's weird because she certainly was an accomplice of
she
moving a body.
She did confess that she took part, but they decided to acquit her. And they sentenced Louise to 20 years hard labor.
Okay.
And Louise, after the sentencing, thanks the jury to have spared her daughter.
Okay, so she was happy about that.
Yeah. In 1929, 7 years later, Paul goes back to the prosecutor and confesses again. She lied again during the trial when she wanted to be freed because she wanted to go and live with a woman she met in the jail. She says that her mom hadn't locked her up in her bedroom, that the crime wasn't premeditated. She tries all she can to free her mom, but Louise, who has bone TB at the time, dies on the 21st of March, 1932.
Sad.
And apparently she claimed her innocence to the end.
What crazy.
Paul campaigns for a better treatment of prisoners for a little while, and then she retires to a convent. And then I lost her trace.
So she went away, lived with a woman, and then became a nun.
Yes.
That's a bit of a strange route, a bit of a 180, but there you go. Okay. Yeah. I think one thing you can kind of like take from life, doesn't matter how much you rehearse things, sometimes your plans just aren't boxing clever.